So let's just jump right in with a pretty bold statement. A lot of what you think you know about the world, it's probably wrong. And I don't mean just a little bit off, I mean dramatically, systematically wrong. We're going to dive into this idea from the book Factfulness and see why our brains get it so wrong and how just looking at the data can totally change our perspective. But hey, to prove the point, let's start with a quick test.
All right, let's see how you do. Seriously, no pressure. For these next couple of questions, just go with your gut.
First one is about extreme poverty. Just think about all the headlines you see, the stories you hear. Over the last 2 decades, what do you think happened? Did it double, stay about the same, or get cut in half? Go ahead, lock in your answer. Okay, question number 2. Natural disasters. I mean, with everything we see on the news. Earthquakes, floods, hurricanes. What's happened to the number of people dying from these things over the last century? Did it more than double, stay the same, or decrease to less than half? Okay, moment of truth. For both questions, the correct answer was C. Yep, you heard that right. In the last 20 years, global extreme poverty has been cut almost in half. And over the last century, deaths from natural disasters have decreased to less than half of what they were. Just let that sink in for a second. Now look, if you got those wrong, you are in very, very good company. The author of Factfulness, Rosling, he asked thousands of people these kinds of questions. We're talking everyone from students to Nobel Prize winners, and almost everyone gets them wrong. So wrong, in fact, that a chimpanzee picking answers completely at random would actually score better than most humans. No joke. So what is going on here? This isn't about how smart you are, not at all. It's about how our brains are wired. We've all got these instincts baked in that were super helpful for our ancestors trying to survive on the savannah. But today, in our world swimming with data, those same instincts totally trip us up. They make us crave drama and cause us to jump to completely the wrong conclusions. Okay, so the first big one is what he calls the gap instinct. Our brain just loves a simple story. And what's simpler than two opposing teams? You know, us versus them, the rich versus the poor, the developed world versus the developing world. It's a mental shortcut that paints this picture of a world split in two, with this huge, empty gap right in the middle. And this slide just shows perfectly how misleading that instinct is. We tend to think of places like the US and Mexico as being on 2 totally different economic planets. But look at this graph of actual incomes. Is there a clean gap? Not even close. There is a massive overlap. The reality isn't 2 separate blocks, it's one continuous range. And guess what? Most people on Earth live somewhere in the middle, not at the extreme ends our brains want to imagine. And then there's the fear instinct. Our brains evolved to be hyper alert to danger. I mean, the ancestors who heard a rustle in the grass and thought, oh, it's probably just the wind, well, they didn't become our ancestors. Today, that instinct makes us zoom in on scary news. Plane crashes, disasters, violence, that stuff grabs our attention. And the media, well, they know exactly how to push that button. Slow, steady improvement, as we're about to see, almost never makes the evening news. So, okay, our instincts paint this picture of a world that's divided and terrifying. But what happens if we can just quiet those instincts for a minute and just look at the cold, hard data? Let's pull back the curtain and see what story the facts are actually telling us. You know the feeling, right? You turn on the news, you scroll through your feed, and it just feels like the world is constantly on the brink of collapse. It feels more dangerous than it's ever been. That's a super common, very powerful feeling. But here's the reality. Check out this chart. It shows deaths from disasters, and look at that drop. It's not a little dip, it is absolutely plummeted. Back in the 1930s, you were looking at hundreds of deaths per million people. Today, it's down to around 10. Our fear instinct focuses on the scary hurricane, but the data shows our incredible progress in saving lives through better prediction, better buildings, and better response. And what about flying? Every single plane crash is a huge global news story, and it triggers that fear in all of us. But look at the data. Flying has become ridiculously safe. Compared to the 1930s, it's literally thousands of times safer. The progress is just mind-boggling, but our perception is stuck on the fear of that one rare, tragic event. And let's circle all the way back to that first quiz question, the one about extreme poverty. That dramatic halving we mentioned means that just 20 years ago, almost a third of the world's population, 29%, lived in extreme poverty. Today, that number is down to just 9%. Seriously, just think about that. We're talking about billions of people lifting themselves and their families into a better life. This is easily one of the greatest stories of human progress in our lifetimes, and almost nobody knows it happened. You know, progress isn't just some abstract number on a chart. It changes real lives in really profound ways. Rosling tells this great story about when his family got their first washing machine. He said it was like a miracle, and his mother explained why. She said, "Now we have loaded the laundry, the machine will do the work. So now we can go to the library." That machine created time for education. That's what progress actually looks like. Okay, so if the world is getting so much better, does that mean everything's fine? We can all just kick back and relax? No, not at all. And this right here brings us to the single most important lesson in all of factfulness.
We have to get good at telling the difference between a level and a direction. A level can be bad. For instance, having 9% of the world still in extreme poverty is awful. That's a huge number of people suffering. That is a bad level. But the direction, the trend, is that it is getting better, down from 29%. This is the absolute core of it all. It's not about being an optimist, looking on the bright side, and it's not about being a pessimist, focusing on the negative. It's about being what Rosling calls a possibilist, someone who has a clear-eyed view of reality. The world has huge, terrifying problems, climate change, inequality, you name it. In that sense, things are bad. And in many crucial ways, like poverty and safety, the world is getting better. Both of those statements are true. And holding both of those ideas in your head at the same time, that is the key.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big thought. What if we stopped reacting from our gut instincts, from our fear, from our need for simple, dramatic stories? What could we actually accomplish if we made our big decisions, as a society and in our own lives, based on the facts instead? What problems could we solve if we directed all that energy with data instead of drama? That's really the challenge that factfulness leaves us with.